Las Vegas is often measured in revenue, skylines, and spectacle, but the real story of the city is not written in financial reports or architectural scale. It is written in behavior, in where people gather, how long they stay, and what they are willing to pay for without regret. In recent years, a quiet shift has taken place. The Las Vegas Strip, once the unquestioned center of gravity, feels increasingly distant from the economic reality of the average American. At the same time, Fremont Street has grown louder, denser, and more alive. This change is not about nostalgia or aesthetics. It is about value, trust, and survival in a fragile economy. This story is not about one part of Las Vegas winning over another. It is about how American consumers have changed and how different models of entertainment respond to that change. From pricing and walkability to identity and business strategy, the divide between the Strip and Fremont reveals something larger than tourism. It reveals how Americans now choose where to spend their time, their money, and their energy. For decades, Las Vegas represented something very specific in the American imagination. It wasn't just a city built on casinos and hotels. It was an escape, a temporary break from the limits of everyday life. For the American middle class, the Las Vegas Strip functioned as a reward system. You worked all year, endured long hours, stagnant pay, and rising stress, and once in a while, you were allowed to feel rich. The Strip sold the idea that excess was earned, even if only for a weekend. During that era, price was part of the fantasy. Expensive rooms, overpriced drinks, and high table minimums weren't viewed as problems. They were signals. They told visitors that they had stepped into a different world, one where normal financial caution could be suspended without guilt. The Strip wasn't built to be practical. It was built to feel unreal, and for a long time, Americans were financially stable enough to play along. That relationship has changed. Quietly at first, then all at once. Over the past several years, the economic reality for the average American has shifted in a way that fundamentally altered how people travel, spend, and seek entertainment. Inflation didn't just raise prices, it changed behavior. Rent, groceries, insurance, healthcare, and utilities began consuming a larger share of household income, while wages failed to keep pace. What used to be discretionary money slowly turned into survival money. As a result, the modern American visitor arrives in Las Vegas with a completely different mindset. They are no longer looking to feel rich, they are looking to feel relieved. Relieved that they can still afford a trip at all. Relieved that a few days of entertainment won't turn into months of financial stress. The question is no longer, how luxurious is this experience? But is this worth the money I'm about to spend? This is where the Las Vegas Strip begins to lose its footing. The Strip is still built on a luxury-first assumption. Its pricing structure assumes that visitors are willing to overpay for the promise of prestige, convenience, and spectacle. Resort fees, paid parking, inflated food prices, and mandatory service charges are not side effects. They are part of the business model. The problem is that this model no longer aligns with how the average American thinks about money. Fremont Street, by contrast, operates under a different psychological contract. It does not ask visitors to pretend they are wealthier than they are. It offers a more honest exchange. Cheaper drinks, visible entertainment, walkable spaces, and fewer hidden costs create an environment where spending feels controlled rather than coerced. The experience may be rougher around the edges, but it feels manageable. In an economy defined by anxiety, manageability becomes a form of comfort. This shift explains why Fremont feels crowded while parts of the Strip feel hollow. It is not because Americans have lost interest in entertainment. It is because entertainment is now filtered through economic caution. People are still willing to spend money, but only when the value is immediately clear and emotionally justified. The Strip asks visitors to buy into an image. Fremont asks them to buy an experience they can afford. In today's America, image alone is no longer enough. The era when the middle class could temporarily live beyond its means without consequence is fading. Las Vegas didn't change overnight. Americans did, and as their priorities shifted from luxury escape to value survival, the places that failed to adapt began to feel out of sync with the reality outside their doors. In the modern American economy, price is no longer just a number. It is a signal of trust. Where people choose to spend their money increasingly depends not on how expensive something is, but on how honest the transaction feels. This is one of the most overlooked reasons why Fremont Street continues to attract crowds while the Las Vegas Strip struggles to maintain the same energy. Fremont Street does not attempt to disguise what it is. It does not sell itself as refined or exclusive. It openly embraces affordability. Drink prices are visible. Parking is cheap or free. Live music and street performances are not hidden behind paywalls or reservations. Visitors can look around, understand what they are paying paying for and decide whether it fits their budget without anxiety. That clarity reduces friction, and in an era defined by financial stress, reduced friction matters. The Strip operates in the opposite way. On paper, it promises luxury and convenience, but in practice, it introduces costs slowly and quietly. Resort fees appear after the room is booked. Parking fees are discovered after arrival. Service charges are added after the meal is finished. Individually, these costs may seem minor. Psychologically, they accumulate into something far more damaging: the feeling of being misled. For today's American consumer, that feeling carries more weight than the final dollar amount. People can accept high prices when they understand them up front. What they struggle with is the sense that the rules of the transaction are being changed midstream. In a country where trust in institutions, corporations, and pricing systems has already eroded, hidden costs trigger resentment far faster than open expense. Fremont Street benefits from this shift in consumer psychology. By making prices obvious and predictable, it allows visitors to maintain a sense of control. Spending becomes a choice rather than a trap. Even when people spend less overall, they stay longer, move more freely, and engage more willingly with their surroundings. The environment feels less transactional and more participatory. The Strip, meanwhile, still relies on a pricing strategy built for a different era. It assumes that visitors will tolerate ambiguity in exchange for prestige. That assumption no longer holds. Americans are no longer just counting dollars, they are counting moments of regret. Every unexpected fee reinforces the belief that the experience was not worth it, regardless of how impressive the setting may be. In this context, Fremont Street's success is not about being cheap, it is about being legible. It respects the visitor's ability to make informed decisions. In an economy shaped by caution and skepticism, transparency becomes a competitive advantage. The crowd follows not the lowest price, but the clearest one. At first glance, resort fees seem insignificant. Compared to hotel rates, flight costs, or gambling losses, they appear small, almost forgettable. But in the psychology of the modern American consumer, resort fees carry a meaning far larger than their price. They have become a symbol, not of luxury, but of broken trust. The problem with resort fees is not simply that they exist, it is how they are introduced. They rarely appear in the first price a customer sees. They emerge later, after decisions have already been made, after emotional commitment has already formed. This sequencing matters. It transforms a neutral transaction into a deceptive one. What should feel like a choice begins to feel like a trap. Corporate Las Vegas normalized this practice over time. As operating costs increased and shareholder expectations rose, resort fees became a quiet solution. Instead of improving the experience or rethinking the value proposition, many properties chose to extract more money from the same visitor without offering anything meaningfully new in return. The message this sends is subtle but clear. Maximizing revenue matters more than maintaining goodwill. Fremont Street largely avoided this path. By keeping pricing simpler and more upfront, it preserved a sense of fairness in the exchange. Visitors may spend less, but they leave with fewer regrets. That emotional outcome is critical. In entertainment economies, memory is as important as experience. People return not to places that impressed them, but to places that did not make them feel taken advantage of. In the age of social media and online reviews, this distinction becomes even more powerful. Trust no longer lives in advertising. It lives in comment sections, ratings, and shared anecdotes. One negative experience, especially one involving unexpected fees, spreads faster than any promotional campaign. Resort fees, repeated across thousands of visitors, quietly erode a brand's reputation, one review at a time. What makes this especially damaging is that the resentment lingers. A guest may enjoy the room, the view, or the amenities, but the final bill reframes the entire trip. The last impression becomes the strongest one. In an economy where consumers are already skeptical of corporations, these moments confirm existing fears rather than challenge them. Resort fees did not collapse trust overnight. They chipped away at it gradually. Fremont Street benefited not because it offered perfection, but because it avoided this specific breach. In a marketplace defined by transparency and peer validation, trust generates traffic, and once trust is lost, no amount of luxury can fully replace it. For years, American cities have been told that people no longer buy products, they buy experiences. This idea reshaped entertainment districts, tourism strategies, and urban redevelopment projects across the country. Las Vegas embraced this language early, but the results reveal a contradiction. The most expensive version of the experience now feels the least alive. The Las Vegas Strip is meticulously designed. Every detail is controlled. Sound, lighting, movement, and even behavior are carefully managed to protect a polished image. In theory, this should produce a superior experience. In practice, it often creates a sense of emotional distance. The environment feels impressive but detached, immersive yet impersonal. Visitors are surrounded by spectacle, but rarely feel part of it. Fremont Street operates by a different logic. Experiences there are not packaged behind gates or schedules. Live music spills into the street. Performers occupy public space without invitation. Noise, movement, and unpredictability are not treated as flaws, but as features. The chaos is visible, unscripted, and impossible to fully control. For many Americans, that lack of polish is exactly what makes it feel real. This distinction matters more now than it did in the past. Americans are increasingly fatigued by environments that feel engineered to extract engagement rather than create connection. Theme park experiences, algorithm-driven entertainment, and corporate-controlled spaces have trained consumers to recognize when their emotions are being managed. What once felt exciting now feels artificial. Fremont Street offers an alternative. It does not promise perfection, it offers presence. People are not just observers, but participants, even if only briefly. The music may be loud, the crowd unpredictable, and the surroundings imperfect, but the experience belongs to the moment rather than the brand. That immediacy creates memory without requiring luxury. The Strip still equates quality with control. Fremont equates value with spontaneity. In an experience economy shaped by skepticism, Americans are gravitating toward places that feel human rather than flawless. They are not rejecting entertainment, they are rejecting environments where every emotion feels pre-approved. Fremont Street succeeds not because it outperforms the Strip in scale or prestige, but because it aligns with what experience now means in America. People want to feel something unfiltered, not curated luxury, but organic chaos, not cold perfection, but lived in reality. Cities compete not only on attractions, but on identity. People travel to experience something they cannot find at home. For much of its history, Las Vegas understood this instinct better than almost any city in America. The Strip was not trying to imitate the rest of the world. It was deliberately excessive, strange, and unmistakably itself. That clarity has faded. Walk through the modern Strip and the experience feels increasingly familiar. Luxury malls dominate the landscape. Global brands repeat themselves from one resort to the next. The restaurants, the stores, and even the aesthetics mirror what already exists in Los Angeles, New York, London, or Dubai. What was once an escape from normal life now resembles an extension of it. This shift did not happen by accident. As corporate ownership expanded and international tourism became a priority, the Strip began optimizing for global appeal. Familiarity was treated as safety. Recognizable brands were seen as reliable revenue. Over time, the casinos stopped leading culture and started importing it. The result is an environment that feels expensive, polished, and strangely interchangeable. Fremont Street moved in the opposite direction. It did not modernize by copying elsewhere. It doubled down on what made it distinct. Old signage, smaller venues, louder crowds, and visible imperfections were preserved rather than erased. The area remained gritty, local, and unapologetically unconventional. It did not try to become globally elegant. It stayed stubbornly specific. For American visitors, this contrast matters. Travel is justified by difference. When the Strip offers the same retail experience found in every major city, its reason for existing becomes less clear. The question quietly forms, why come here for this? Fremont does not trigger that doubt. It looks, feels, and behaves like a place that could only exist in Las Vegas. Consistency plays a powerful role in memory. Fremont has changed over time, but its core identity has remained intact. Visitors know what they are walking into. The Strip, meanwhile, struggles with self-definition. It wants to be luxurious, mass market, global, and exclusive all at once. In trying to be everything, it risks becoming nothing in particular. Fremont's advantage is not nostalgia alone, it is coherence. It knows what it is and does not apologize for it. In an era where Americans are increasingly selective about where they spend their time and money, identity becomes value. People do not travel to see what they already have, they travel to experience what they do not. Las Vegas does not survive on visitors alone. It survives on who those visitors are. Behind the lights and revenue numbers lies a quiet division that rarely enters public discussion. The difference between domestic travelers and international tourists, and how heavily the city now leans on one over the other. The modern Las Vegas Strip increasingly orients itself toward international guests and high-value players. Luxury rooms, global brand partnerships, fine dining, and exclusive entertainment are designed to appeal to visitors who travel long distances and spend aggressively. On paper, this strategy looks rational. Fewer guests, higher spending, stronger margins. Revenue can remain stable even as foot traffic declines. Fremont Street depends on a very different group. Its ecosystem is built around domestic travelers, particularly middle and working class Americans. These visitors arrive for shorter trips, spend more cautiously, and prioritize accessibility over prestige. They come in larger numbers, not because they are wealthy, but because the environment allows them to participate without financial strain. This distinction matters because the American tourism economy is fundamentally domestic. Most travel dollars in the United States come from Americans traveling within their own country. When this group pulls back, the effects ripple quickly and visibly. Hotels feel emptier, streets lose energy, the atmosphere shifts, even if revenue metrics appear healthy. The Strip's growing reliance on international tourists creates a vulnerability. International travel is sensitive to global conditions, currency fluctuations, geopolitical tension, visa policies, and economic downturns abroad. When those flows slow, there is no immediate domestic cushion to absorb the loss. The space remains open, the infrastructure intact, but the crowd thins. Fremont Street is more resilient in this regard. Its success is tied to the habits of Americans who can decide on a short trip with minimal planning. Weekend visitors, road trippers, and budget-conscious travelers keep the area active even when global tourism softens. The result is a space that feels alive, not because each visitor spends more, but because more people are present. This imbalance explains a visual paradox. The Strip can report strong financial performance while feeling strangely empty. Fremont can generate less revenue while appearing crowded and energetic. One optimizes for financial extraction, the other sustains social density. In entertainment districts, density shapes perception as much as money. Las Vegas was built on volume before it was built on exclusivity. As the city's core audience shifts away from domestic travelers, the Strip risks losing the very presence that made it feel alive. Fremont's strength lies not in wealth, but in numbers. And in an economy where domestic participation defines stability, that distinction becomes increasingly difficult to ignore. Entertainment is often discussed in terms of money, culture, and psychology. Rarely is it examined as a physical experience. Yet for the modern American visitor, the body plays a far more important role than most entertainment districts are willing to acknowledge. How far people walk, how long they stand, and how much effort is required to move from one place to another shapes their perception of value more than spectacle ever could. The Las Vegas Strip is physically demanding by design. Distances are deceptive. What appears close on a map often requires long walks through casinos, escalators, pedestrian bridges, and crowded corridors. Bottlenecks form around intersections, entrances, and popular venues. The environment encourages movement but offers little relief. By the end of the day, exhaustion becomes part of the experience. For decades, this fatigue was accepted as the price of excess. Walking miles under bright lights felt like participation in something grand. Today, the calculation is different. Americans are more aware of their limits. They are older on average, more health conscious, and less tolerant of environments that drain energy without clear reward. Convenience has become a form of luxury. Fremont Street understands this intuitively. The district is compact, venues are close together, music, food, and entertainment are visible without long transitions. Movement feels purposeful rather than obligatory. People can enter, engage, rest, and re-engage without feeling trapped in a marathon of corridors and crowds. This efficiency changes behavior. Visitors stay longer not because they are overwhelmed, but because they are comfortable. They spend more time observing, interacting, and participating rather than simply navigating. The physical layout supports spontaneity instead of punishing it. The Strip, meanwhile, still assumes that scale equals value. Bigger properties, longer promenades, and more expansive layouts are treated as upgrades. But scale without comfort becomes friction. Each extra step, each forced detour, quietly subtracts from the experience. In an era where Americans increasingly value efficiency, accessibility, and ease, Fremont's walkability becomes a decisive advantage. It respects the visitor's energy, and in entertainment, conserving energy often matters more than amplifying spectacle. Crowds do not form by accident. In entertainment districts, they are the result of small incentives layered carefully over time. One of the most underestimated of these incentives is alcohol, not as a vice, but as a social lubricant that determines how long people stay, how freely they move, and how connected they feel to the space around them. Fremont Street treats alcohol as a public experience. Drinks are affordable, easy to find, and legally consumed while walking through the district. This simple permission changes everything. People are not anchored to tables or confined to venues. They move, observe, linger, and interact. The street becomes an extension of the bar, and the bar becomes part of the street. On the Las Vegas Strip, alcohol is tightly controlled and aggressively priced. Drinks are expensive, often limited to specific locations, and governed by stricter rules. Consumption becomes a calculated decision rather than a spontaneous one. Visitors think twice before ordering, and once they do, they tend to stay put to justify the cost. Movement slows, energy fragments. This difference directly affects crowd density. Fremont feels alive not because its visitors are wealthier, but because they can afford to stay. Time becomes the real currency. Affordable drinks extend that time, allowing people to remain present without constantly reassessing their spending. The longer people stay, the fuller the street feels, and the more energy circulates. The Strip, by contrast, accelerates financial fatigue. High drink prices shorten visits, push people back to their rooms, or force them to disengage earlier than planned. The environment may be visually impressive, but its social rhythm is fragile. When participation becomes expensive, spontaneity disappears. What makes this dynamic powerful is how subtle it is. There are no banners advertising freedom or affordability. The effect emerges organically. People stay because they can. They return because the experience did not punish them financially. Over time, this creates consistency in crowd behavior. Fremont Street's success is not about encouraging excess. It is about reducing barriers to presence. In entertainment economies, presence creates atmosphere. An atmosphere once established attracts more people than luxury ever could.